Let's face it, B2B sales is in trouble. Blast emails, cold calling and irrelevant messages, not to mention an economy causing uncertainty to spike, is creating a canyon-sized divide between buyers and sellers alike. The answer? Deep sales. Today, organisations that adopt deep sales strategies and technologies are setting themselves up for long-term success with an approach that sets their sellers up to be seen as trusted, strategic advisors by the buyers they serve. We at the world's largest professional network are sitting down with some of the most innovative sales voices today to discuss what it means to bring deep sales into an enterprise organisation. Let's dive in with our host, Rob Humphrey.
On this episode of the Deep Sales Podcast, I was overwhelmed. I got to talk to Girish Ramachandran. He's the president of Tata Consultancy Services in APAC. This guy's been all over the world. He's gotten the key to the city of Amsterdam, and he runs marathons in his spare time. An amazing sales leader and just conscious business leader, you're going to be blown away by the stuff he has to say. Join me on the Deep Sales Podcast.
I feel that successful salespeople use a combination of skills, and a lot of that is data and insights.
Listen, I got to first start off with, of course, I looked at your LinkedIn profile. Then I kind of started putting two and two together here. You're running a $2.5 billion business in 12 countries with 50,000 employees. So let's start by doing this. My first question for you: tell me something that's not on your LinkedIn profile.
Rob, that's very tough. I mean, that's a tough thing. But I'll tell you a few things which I have not put it in the profile. So, for example, I am a marathon runner. I have run multiple marathons. I've completed my full marathons in Berlin, in Amsterdam, as well as New York.
You've done New York. Very nice.
Yes,
what was your
marathon. It's a TCS New York marathon.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. So you actually went and had to do this effectively. Like, you had to do the New York one, right? So you trained in Berlin and Amsterdam.
Correct. I did it for the first time when TCS took over, the first year when TCS was the title sponsor. That is when I did the New York marathon.
Nice. Very good.
In the last year or so, I moved away from marathon into being a triathlete. So I just did a mini triathlon in Singapore just last month.
So also, I know that you are into education and you're into this concept of lifelong learning. I've read blog posts as far back as 2015 about this. So I got to ask you, in the last 3 years during this funky time we all have been in, what is your number one learning over the last, couple of years, if you had to choose one?
I think the most important learning for me has been that how all organizations pivoted themselves to be a technology business. That, I think, has been the most significant learning that I've had. On a personal space, I also did a corporate governance program from Wharton during this particular time as well. So I did both for my own personal learning. I took up that plunge, and during COVID, I completed that.
I'm going to guess what you're learning now. I bet you're doing a little bit of generative AI studying and that type of thing. I can't imagine you're not. And I want to get your opinion on it. I guess what I'm asking you is, in a nutshell, how do you think generative AI is going to change, or is it going to change sort of sales and how sales operates?
It's a funny thing, Rob, because I actually attempted to do this in our last sales meeting last month in Chennai. I got my entire leadership across Asia Pacific to Chennai, and I actually told my team to reimagine what a generative AI can do for sales. So we reimagined right from how do you pick a prospect, and how do you essentially, after you pick a prospect, how do you write your first letter to the prospect, if you want to write it.
Nice.
Through to even if the prospect gives you a meeting, what is your pitch going to be like? And after the pitch, assuming that he or she gives you a contract, how do you compare it and how do you get it through your own legal first? Forget about the customer's legal. So I actually did simulation of this entire thing on a generative AI, and it was astonishing to see the results. I mean, I was just dumbstruck with what this whole thing could do, and it is going to save a lot of time for a lot of us.
Yeah, and look, this is sort of the tip of the iceberg or whatever, and I'm glad you've actually went through this sort of mechanics of doing this. And another thing that strikes me in the 3 minutes we've been talking is you have so much depth, but you're not like, look, I've done all these dope things. You're just like, look, I've tested it out and came up with my own, sort of conclusions. So look, we know at LinkedIn, we do a lot of studying a lot of analyzing in data, and we know the 3 things roughly that set apart average performers from top performers. And one of those is certainly knowing where to spend your time. In fact, most of the time, the top people are going to spend less time selling than the average people because they're going to figure not just the AI piece out, but they're going to figure out how to take insights and sort of move the process forward. Are you seeing, like in your organization, this shift? And if you are, like, how are you actually upskilling these folks? And for context, I was just talking to another CS sales leader today at IBM, and one of the things that struck me is, there's not every sales rep is, going to want to adopt sort of new stuff, right? So I'd be interested in your sort of perspective on like how you're moving the performance level and the skill level of sales as an organization.
So I always believe that even though COVID happened and we have moved a lot away from probably a touch sales process to a dual sales model, which is a lot more today driven by data and insights. There is nothing which can replicate finally a customer meet, a physical customer.
I want to thank you for saying that in case my boss, as she's developing my quota, happens to see this podcast. I want to just thank you right there for saying that. I'm listening. Go ahead.
I genuinely believe that because as soon as the markets opened, the first thing I did was go around and meet with clients right from Australia, New Zealand to all the way across all the markets. But having said that, I feel that successful salespeople use a combination of skills, and a lot of that is data and insights.
Yeah.
And that particular thing, if you look at it, has significantly moved up in the last few years. And there has been a significant move towards moving and understanding your customer better. And with all the tools available right now, there is an opportunity for us to get better prepared for meetings before you make no longer a sales cold call that happens.
Yeah, agreed on that. And, one thing that's sort of interesting is with people being more remote now, like I'm seeing this in my own work, like, hey, I'm reaching out to a new client. They're like, I'm remote working. Like I'm not going to go to their house. Are you seeing this to become a particular challenge? Like this idea of, not everyone's running back to the office or to the customer meeting per se?
Look, Rob, my own feeling is that there was a time when we would drop everything to go and meet new customer.
Yeah.
And there was a time when there was so much of traveling happening around just to go and meet one. I have traveled to New York, for example, just to meet one customer and come back. I think those days probably is over. I mean, I'm not saying that will be over completely, but those days are probably over. Having said that, I don't think anything can replicate a face-to-face meeting. So even now I see that even when I go and meet customers are very happy to meet with us. It is not that we have seen them come and say that don't come and meet me or come and meet me near my house at the coffee shop. That particular thing has not happened yet.
Yeah.
We are seeing customers. I mean, most people have moved to a hybrid model where it is 2 or 3 days in office, the rest of them at home. So we just need to plan ourselves better. But I do see that that particular model of completely remote, I don't believe that at least in the sales model it's going to work.
So let me ask you this. You've got some salespeople there. I'm sure you've got some percentage of people that are like, they're not really probably embracing technology, like sales technology in particular. How do you get folks to really adopt sort of the latest, technology around sales, stuff that's going to show them buyer intent and kind of keep track of things better? What do you do about those folks?
So in TCS, we have what is called a demand creation model. And our demand creation model is uses what is called the TIPS methodology, which is the trends, implications, possibilities, and solutions. And what we try and do is all the salespeople, when we are doing a review of our own sales processes, before we go and look at what pitch do we give to a particular customer, we typically go and ask our salespeople on looking at what is the tips model that you have for this particular customer.
All
so
right.
that we just try to fine tune that, because we only get one opportunity to go in front of a customer, and at that particular time it is very important to use that. And then of course we use some other models like the LinkedIn Sales Navigator and others to help the whole ecosystem, so that our first shot is the best shot as well.
I love to hear you talk about the sort of technology aspects and everything else, coupled with sort of the importance of that high touch. It's interesting. One other thing that you've done, which is amazing, you've grown this TCS brand and these businesses in a lot of different places: Europe, the Middle East, Africa, APAC. How do you go about gaining trust? How do you go about sort of understanding those nuances as a leader? I went to Denmark. I went to Amsterdam, where we had an office in the early days of LinkedIn. And I remember saying something about, I don't know, Swedish people and Danish people together. And they were like, what are you saying? So I guess my question is how do you do it? How do you get trust and build relationships in all of those different sort of zones?
So it is good you brought in the whole element of trust, because trust and relationship remain universal in the whole sales process.
Yeah.
And I think, that with an overlay of culture is what probably are the three dimensions which essentially help a salesperson to be very successful across every market. So I've had my own learnings, Rob. For example, when I went to Europe, I had to learn a lot about soccer and local clubs.
Yeah.
I also jokingly tell my sales team as well, I had to start drinking a lot of coffee, because Dutch are the largest coffee drinkers in the world. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I do know that. Yeah.
And then you go to, and then when I started looking at Middle East Africa, and when I started going to South Africa, I had to unlearn. I had to unlearn soccer and relearn rugby. And I keep telling this because in every sales process or a relationship meeting, it is those first few minutes of ice breaking which actually helps one get through to the other customer, right? And help build that particular trust. So it has been a lot of, I do emphasize a lot on culture. And culture is, I think, a very important aspect, which sometimes people do miss in the whole cycle. So I have seen that, for example, in the markets that I'm in today, and which has a significant amount of Chinese influence in these markets, there are very significant about certain numbers. Like, for example, number 8. 8 means a lot of wealth for Chinese. So even when we try and quote a particular number to for a bid, we try to bring in those numbers that customers look at that, and then we don't have to go through multiple negotiations.
Yeah. So the rep walks in with the proposal. It's $55,008.
No, I had one interesting experience. For example, there was a customer that we had to quote, and we were quoting higher than most of our competitors, but I
Because you're
quoted,
worth it. Yeah.
yeah, and we quoted for this particular customer who happened to be a buyer from Chinese origin. We put a number of 18.88. And believe
Nice.
me, we didn't have but no negotiation through the whole meeting.
Nice.
We had we had set a whole day for negotiation. This customer did not. We closed the deal within a few minutes, and the
Yeah.
rest of the afternoon was spent on having a cup of coffee or lunch or other. So I think it is very important to take some of these learnings across all these markets.
So look, TCS is obviously a LinkedIn Sales Navigator customer. I'm not looking for you to pitch Sales Navigator, but what is your philosophy for just overall for technology supporting your sales team?
So we again, other than of course the internal CRM rhythm that we have for our own sales, I strongly believe there are two important things, Rob, which is important for the sales process. One is content, the other one is context. Okay.
Yes.
Both of them is very important. And when you look at content, and depending on content, definitely comes on insights through the whole sales channel, and that we pick a lot of that content through Sales Navigator today. And we also use other tools like LinkedIn campaigns and prospects, and as well as for engagement awareness or lead generation as well. We've also used one interesting thing about setting up the context. So, for example, we all know that when you are going through a sales cycle, if you are new to a particular customer, we cannot go and sell. Customers don't listen to us as a salesperson, right?
Yeah.
So we use the whole ecosystem of LinkedIn to see how we are able to sell that. We have been trying that in a couple of large deals, and we've been successful in that, trying to see how we can influence somebody through the buyer through a whole ecosystem. And that I think has been another thing that has been enabled through technology.
Yeah, interesting. And the ecosystem has to extend to your LinkedIn page as well. I was going through that, and I noticed 12.5 million followers on your LinkedIn page. I work with a client they just eclipsed 500,000. Like I sent them champagne type of thing. That's incredible. That's quite a opportunity there, I would imagine, just on that page. But you have quite a following. Do you think you need a college degree to be in a sales organization now?
This is an interesting question because I always reflect on what did I learn from MBA, and did I use any of that what I learned in MBA for my whole career. Yeah. I think the college degree is a passport. It's a seat at the table. I still would tell everybody to go and do their education very well, because that is the one which gets you a seat at the table. And when I go and talk to interns, I tell them that the world outside is very different from what you have learned inside your college. And as long as we are able to reset and relearn and unlearn what you have learned in college, I think one can do very well. So we all know that, Rob, what we learned in college is actually what is useful for us is the relationship that we built with our classmates. I think that is probably a large asset, and we learn a lot from that ecosystem rather than purely a teacher per se. I'm not saying that my mother herself is a teacher, so I'm not saying that teachers are not important. Teachers are extremely important, but you learn a lot from your classmates.
Yeah, you do. I have seen, and I will say, I think that there's a lot of people that they can't do it. Either they can't do it or they can't afford it, whatever. For some reason, they just can't do it. And they could potentially, I think there's a new era where a lot of these people could be potentially great. They just need specific skills. Yeah. And they can find those skills out, kind of like what you're doing with some of the stuff with the schools in Singapore. Interesting. Girish, you got the key to the city from the mayor of Amsterdam. Number one, that's super dope, right? But clearly, you guys care about the community, or you would have never had a chance at getting that. In fact, he's spoken about society's at the center of business, which is the motto of the Tata Group's founder. So what's your thinking on service?
So the thing is when I, as again, a part of the Tata Group philosophy of being part of the community and working with the community at large. In the Netherlands, when I was there, Rob, I went with the thinking that I will be there only for 2 years. I'll be a contingent for 2 years and then I'll come back.
Yeah.
I went on to stay for 10 years. And I lived in Holland for 10 years. And
then the mayor of Amsterdam gave you like a medal, basically, correct?
It is the key for the city of Amsterdam.
Oh, man.
And it is essentially because they saw that there was people contributing beyond their work to do something for the community at large. And I was happy that TCS provided me the opportunity to contribute. Like you rightly said, pay it forward is very important.
Yep.
Because at the end of it, we will all get measured not by what we did in our own roles, but somebody will look back and say, what did this particular person, what kind of legacy this person did he or she leave? And it is very important that we also find time to do other things in life beyond our work.
Girish, I mean, key to the city, marathon running. But what is most impressive about our discussion was like just the depth that you have around there's this new world and embrace it and it be opportunistic and take care of society. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you, Rob. If there is one thing that I've learned is to see that we are all there for a particular purpose.
Yeah.
And it is important to define that long-term purpose, which should go beyond financial returns. And that has always been the philosophy of the group. And that has also been the philosophy of organizations which have survived for more than 100 years. And today there are only very few organizations in the world who have done that. So I'm very happy to be doing this for LinkedIn. And I look forward to more of these sessions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining the Deep Sales podcast. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and share. See you on our next episode. Or for more deep sales insights in the meantime, check out the LinkedIn Sales blog. As always, happy selling.